Hi, friends. There's a lot of, it's been quite a couple of weeks, right? There's a lot of energy out there about that people are looking for places to put their energy, and people are looking for how they can work on change a little more. And I wanted to share some thoughts about that. Some things that you can do about getting involved locally and about your information environment and the information environment overall right now. The first thing, and then I wanted to tell a story also about what happened when I got involved, and sort of I think it illustrates why it's so great getting involved locally. Um, the first thing, the if you get involved locally, um, I strongly recommend, if you're up for it, getting involved with your local Democratic Party. But there may be nonprofits, and a lot of people I know are sort of signing up with like national organizations like Indivisible or Surge, and those are great. You should definitely do them. And in a lot of cases, they have local orgs where you can start one, and those are really, really good. I also recommend getting involved with local party organizations, and I know that's a tough ask for a lot of people, but I'll get to sort of how this works. Um, One thing that I think is a really great way to get started is just trying to find something that's broken locally and changing it. If you live in a blue area, it almost definitely needs to build more housing. It probably also needs better transit. So those are good things to advocate for. Land use battles are really, really interesting. Budget battles around transit are really interesting. All of that stuff is really good to change. If there's nothing else that you want to work on, try to make the school lunches better. Or maybe they're already great. Maybe they're already organic and terrific. But I think those kinds of challenges will teach you a lot about sort of what's going on in communities and what's going on in this country and how it works. And I strongly recommend getting involved with that. Wanted to talk about the information environment a little bit. A lot of people are sending me sort of right-wing explainers of what happened here. A lot of them are sort of blaming identity politics or blaming how Democrats talk or whatever, this kind of thing. That's not what happened. Like, what happened was that people are super, super frustrated with the system right now. There's an enormous, 75% of the people think the country's on the wrong track. We were tracking through Way to Win, the percentages of people who wanted change in the system, and we believe the Harris campaign just never really addressed that all the way. There's a lot of frustration with the fact that, for 50 years, the rich have been taking all the money. Like, they've been, it's been $50 trillion, more than $50 trillion. That was just in 2020. And that they've taken over the past 5 years, or the past 50 years, rather. And people are really frustrated. They're genuinely frustrated by that. And it makes sense. Our whole economy feels like a scam. So for the Harris campaign to not address that effectively, we think was a really big missed opportunity. And that doesn't have anything to do with Latinx or defunding the police or all these made up reasons that the right has been pushing since then. If you have questions about specific right-wing media, a couple people have sent me a Brianna Wu video that kind of explains this. Please just be really, really careful before you watch these things and they sink into your brain. They're very persuasive. The right is very, very good at propaganda because they've spent the last 50 years doing that so they can keep all the money going rather than figuring out how to govern and actually help people. So just please keep that in mind as you're watching these things or consuming media right now. Strongly, strongly recommend everyone get on Blue Sky. It is really, really terrific having an open social platform that isn't, algorithmically manipulated by billionaires. I just can't expect. The vibe is really, really good there. It's very positive. There's really strong block tools. So it's just a great platform. You can go on there. You can find Way to Win on there is great. We have a starter pack also. The starter packs on Blue Sky are a good way to get up to speed and get a good positive media environment quickly. I know people are. I've had a couple of friends sort of flag that the media environment's very depressing, and I get that, and it's scary. It's true, because what's going on now is scary. But I would encourage people, if you can, to think about it not just as like reality being this scary bad thing that you can only get a few doses of, but like look at it as a problem to solve. Like, there are people who are already working on this who are trying to grow their audiences. And are trying to, to work on the problem and really look at the problem from evidence and really try to understand the problem. U.S. politics is very complicated. It takes a long time to figure out. I've been doing this now for 7 years. I barely understand just like a little bit of it. I'm so confused. It's a very, very complicated problem. It's the hardest problem I've ever worked on by a long shot. Way harder than any technical problems I ever worked on. But it's interesting and fun. It's even fun. It can be fun. If you think about it in sort of this like, okay, we've got a big challenge here, rather than this is a scary thing that I have no control over. You do have control, you do have power, and we're all going to need to build up our power and do that over the next couple of years. Wanted to talk about a little bit about how I initially sort of figured that out, and some things that happened to me when I first got involved. So I lived in Santa Barbara, and I think I got involved right before, right around when Jennifer and I met. And the first couple of things that, I called the California Democratic Party, talked to them. That was one thing. Got involved locally then. Also got involved with a local nonprofit down there called SB Can that was focused on land use mostly, and also had an economic justice, sort of agenda that they wanted to. They wanted stronger services for people who were having a tough time in Santa Barbara. It was a really rich community that also had was very segregated, and had a poor working class. Also, it was kind of a service economy. It was rough there. For people who were below the, who were working minimum wage. So they were trying to help, with that too. At one point there was a living wage campaign that started, and I'd been on the board of this environmental nonprofit, and they said, hey, this living wage campaign is starting. It's a big coalition. We want to be part of it. And they sent me and one other white guy to sort of be the emissaries to this group. And this campaign was starting, and I just remember going to the first meeting, and I think in retrospect, I'm lucky that it was in a library and there were no windows. I think I would have gotten thrown out the plate glass window if if it had been in an office like that. They didn't actually throw me out. They were very nice, but I came back and was talking to my friends. We had a little organizing crew. We'd worked on the Howard Dean campaign. We'd worked on a local city council race down there, and I met all these wonderful organizers. The guy who ran for city council had been trained by someone who was trained by Cesar Chavez, and there was another fantastic organizer there named Daraka Larimore Hall, who was a great friend and an amazing person. So I was telling them about this meeting and how this went, and I just remember their faces kind of crinkling up, and they were like, "Ooh, yeah." Because I had a little organizing experience, and because I was a white, middle-class, cis-het, mostly het person who had been through a whole lot in my life, I kind of rolled into these meetings thinking that I knew everything, and that I was kind of God's gift to organizing, and I can only imagine from the other people's perspective how annoying I must have been. And we smoothed it out eventually. I wasn't horrible or anything. I was just an arrogant white guy, and it was I just had a lot of ego, and they so luckily Jennifer and my organizing crew sort of talked me through this. And what I realized at the time, that the way that they talked me through this is through a lot of the stuff that we call sort of wokies now, right? They talked about the invisible knapsack of privilege and kind of basic fundamental critical race theory, but it wasn't theory. It was stuff that I actually needed to do to participate in a multiracial coalition for change. So fast forward a couple of years, Jennifer gets a job with a guy named Steve Phillips, who was a donor and worked with the Democracy Alliance. He was a billionaire and was black and was race is everything in U.S. politics right now. And the patterns that were happening on the local level were exactly the same patterns that are happening at the national level. So to build a multiracial coalition for economic change, whether it's a living wage campaign in a little city in California or nationally, you have to build a multiracial coalition. That's the only way to build a big enough coalition to actually make economic change. So those lessons really, really were helpful for me in a super long term way. This is what I do every day now is try to figure out how this coalition thinks of itself, how people from different races and different backgrounds, people who have been in the country recently or have been here a long time, or black people who came originally who were descendants of slaves versus black people who are, all these people have different perspectives. We have to understand these things to build this coalition and to hold it together and to be able to make the changes that we want. So just keep in mind the big problems in this country. The reason everybody's so frustrated is over the past 50 years, all we've had is this predatory capitalism. We've had the rich, the top 1%, the richest 1% have taken $50 trillion from the rest of us. That's the big problem. The big problem is not trans people. The big problem is not immigrants. Those are not the people who got the $50 trillion. It's rich guys like Elon Musk and Trump who are using all this division and trying to keep us separated so that we can't change that system. So I hope you will get involved locally. It's really, really great. It's interesting. You meet lots of great people. You learn a ton. Strongly recommend it. And get involved with a local nonprofit, get involved with these national groups. Anything you want to do is really helpful. And we will talk again soon. Thanks, everybody.